David Fetter, Executive Editor Technical for Prepared Foods Media, and welcome to our Prepared Foods series on technical trends in new product development. Today we're taking a look at trends in Asian and Asian-inspired sauces and ingredients with Robert Danhi. He's research chef extraordinaire, regular contributor, and he is one of the leading experts on Asian cuisine, and he's a curator of cultures who leverages his deep knowledge and passion as a consultant to food service operators, CPG companies, commodity boards, and educational organizations. He's also the award-winning author of Southeast Asian Flavors and the TV show host of Taste of Vietnam. Welcome, Chef. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David. Awesome to be here. I really appreciate the invitation. And it's always fun for us to talk personally, but when I look back, it's been 15 years that I've had the privilege of contributing. Yeah, the first article I looked back was about 15 years ago. And really, over the years, we've shared, explored how we transform ingredients, right, into different forms with different tools and different preparations and technologies. I mean, it's been a pretty great journey together. So thanks for reaching out to talk about this and how ingredients and different sauces are used across Asia. We'll touch a few of them. And I'm excited to be here and share some insights. And it's always changing. So let's talk about what's happening nowadays.
Yep, indeed. As someone with a second home base in Malaysia, and you spend months every year traveling throughout Southeast Asia, you've got a firm finger on the pulse of what's happening on the culinary scene there. So let's jump right in. What are some unique Asian flavorings that are either just emerging or should be used in prepared foods and aren't?
Wow, if that's not an open-ended question, right? We got 48 plus countries, we've got thousands of ingredients and thousands of years of history. So what's happening over there? It'd be hard for me to say this is a report, but for today, let's think about something that I've seen over the past couple of years really go from this mainstream home dining market, dim sum into hot cuisine, like higher end, and now in C stores and CPG landscape. So I think one of those, which is probably one of the most important ingredients on the planet, are eggs, and actually egg yolks. Well, think about it. Eggs are more functional than any ingredient on the planet next to water. Functionality, emulsification, there's so many things besides being the source of life. And so what they do with egg yolks, or eggs as a whole, they salt them. Because think about preservation back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And so typically you take duck eggs and you brine them. And the brine has salt, of course, water, Szechuan peppercorns, rice wine, and some other spices, but it's pretty light. And you drop them in there and they age for a week to months, actually. So It brines the whole thing and salts it through. You can leave them out and they ferment slightly. So typically it was duck eggs. But nowadays, let's be realistic, eggs are cheaper, so eggs are more common. But what happens is after it comes out, it's been soaking in that brine, you take it out, the yolk hardens, you've got this thin white. The white is discarded and used for other things. But what's amazing are these salted egg yolks. Now, typically, look back in Chinese cuisine, you'll see it in mooncakes, right? There's a salted egg yolk in the center. It's used, it's used in a lot of different things. And in Southeast Asia, what I've been seeing a lot of, I saw this 30 plus years ago, but now it's went into fast casual C stores and consumer product goods, is salted egg yolks. And there's a combo in Malaysia that's really common. It's salted egg yolk, right? You fry this in butter or margarine, candidly. Then you add curry leaves, because they crisp up and give this beautiful flavor to it, some chilies to it. So you have this egg yolk, the butter, the curry leaf, the chilies, and that turns into this almost sandy mixture. So what's interesting about that texture, because the yolks break up in that fat, is it can be used to coat crab, it can be coated pork. But now, at Costco, in the United States, at least in Southern California, a few other places, they have huge bags of salted egg yolk salmon skin.
Really?
So, talking about mainstream, going from there into, I used to buy it. There's a couple popular brands at the Singapore airport, and you spend 12, 15, $20, this little bag. And now I can go to Costco and get them here. And so I'm seeing it pop up in Asia and here. And if it makes it to a big box store in America, I think you've made it. right?
Wow. So
Yeah.
that I haven't seen it yet here in Texas, but as you know, Texas has a huge Vietnamese
Oh my
population.
goodness. Yeah.
My next door
Hmm.
neighbors and friends are from there, and
Right.
the wife is a chef. So I expect to see that soon. I'll look for it.
And
Now,
Dave, just one thing, just to follow up on that. Yeah, I just led a tour 2 weeks ago, Little Saigon, for a bunch of chefs for one of the chefs organizations. And one of the chefs that was at Disney, so mainstream chef, lots of experience, lost his job during COVID. He and his mom, who's a chef, joined and they're doing this wing concept. And they have the salted egg yolk wings. And it's one of the more popular brands as well. And
oh,
he told me very clearly, because think about it. We're talking about prepared foods.
yeah.
Dependent on the application, the ingredient could be what I like to say appropriate quality. Like there's some situations using whole egg yolks, it's chopped up, it's inserted, premium. Then there's other times where you're buying the egg yolks, they're ground up or what have you, and you get that paste. That's one type. But now there's a lot of ready-made egg yolk powders, and some of them actually have a lot of egg yolks, some don't. But my point is you see it being used in different forms, function, flavor in prepared foods, not just it's one ingredient, but it can actually coat, it can enrich, it can color. So it's actually got a functionality to it.
Whoa. Okay, I know you're headed off to Vietnam. When you come back, I
Yeah.
might have to, if I can't find it here, I might have to have you send me some salted egg yolk powder. Since we mentioned Vietnam, I know you're especially knowledgeable about Vietnamese cuisine.
Mm,
And in
mm,
fact, you hosted that popular TV show there. What I like, it was on regional and off the beaten path culinary traditions.
hmm.
So I was speaking the other day with these friends of mine from Vietnam.
Right.
And they're an interesting mix because the husband's from the north, the wife, as I mentioned, is a chef, and she's from the south. And
Oh,
I asked them, I said, what's missing from Vietnamese food here in North America? And
right.
they said something that you hinted at, and that the thing that's most absent is variety. And,
Oh,
nearly 50 countries in Asia, and, what, a third of them in Southeast Asia. And one of the things she mentioned, just as an
hmm.
example, was nuoc mam, the
Uh,
well-known fish sauce. So
yes, yes.
let's hear your input on that.
Yeah, well, yeah, fish sauce is not fish sauce. Kind of like saying, oh, Italian tomato sauce. But
Yeah,
and which funny thing is, the Italians invented fish sauce and garum used to be
that's
used in
right.
tomatoes, etc. So, but that's a whole nother story for another
Yeah, Rome,
podcast.
ancient
So,
Rome.
so Nook Mom, the fish sauce, right? Nook Mom is definitely one of those foundational ingredients. So it's no surprise they mentioned that, right? Fish sauce, but it's true. People think of fish sauce and they think of the iconic fish sauce of Vietnam that's exported, and they call it a anchovy. It's actually a Staphylosaurus species. There's three different fish. These are wild black anchovies. They're teeny though. They're not the anchovy we know. And they're in the South. In the South, where they make a lot of the fish sauce that we get in the United States here, Phu Quoc is this one island that's famous for fish sauce. And it's the same in the South there, where the Thais come down also, because it's the South. So it's a very similar fish sauce across those two areas. But soon as you leave the Maycoms, I think a product developer, a menu developer, really important isn't just to spec fish sauce. We all know that. There needs to be a specification, not just the brand, but what is the micro and what's inside it. And inside fish sauce is protein. And the amount of protein, when it's measured, this is a national standard in Vietnam, it's measured and it's expressed in degrees, and that's a sign of the protein content. So the first draw, the extra virgin fish sauce, comes out at like 40 to 43%, 43 to 40, 40 to 43 degrees. It's not actually percent. And so that is what you see on labels nowadays, right? 30-degree fish sauce. You can get to 40-degree fish sauce. 40 is the beginning, then they add water and they ferment it again. And there's even one company out there that's concentrating it by, I think, evaporation in a sense. So you can have 50-degree. And if you have that, that means you can use less in your application, higher flavor impact, less fishy smell, right? So I, I think it's really important to not just say fish sauce, as your friends have indicated. And forms, fish
Wow.
sauce is liquid, But there's dry ones, right? There's fish sauce powders that are usually maltodextrin. I'm actually working on a project right now with a friend where we're going to be drying fish sauce with rice flour. And so it's a clean carrier, and you have just fish sauce powder for applying in all sorts of things. It's just an umami bomb. It's so yummy. It's more of a passion project than it is a money project. So yeah,
Another
yeah,
ingredient that my friend mentioned is, and forgive my pronunciation if it's not accurate, but tam tao, the Chinese licorice. And
right, right.
when she mentioned that, I mean, I'll admit, in the dozens of Vietnamese restaurants I've eaten at here in the West, U.S., England, other places in our not Asian culture, um, I can think of only one where I experienced that flavor, and that's that favorite restaurant that you and I go to in Anaheim, Tien Viet.
Mm.
So,
Right.
what's your take on Cam Tao?
One thing that I've seen, and they'll serve it in Vietnam, but it's certainly a Malaysian Singapore dish, is something called bak koo teh, which means pork bone tea. Believe it or not, yeah. And it
Yeah.
was invented, so to speak, or popularized, I think is a better way of saying it, in the Klang Valley in Kuala Lumpur. And so what it is pork bones, right? Pieces of random pieces of pork. And they also have different styles that some are with these bones, some are with ribs. But imagine you have this pork bones, and then that licorice is in there, and there's other Chinese herbs that you would go to an apothecary, because apothecaries are still common. I mean, I just
Oh,
went for acupuncture this week here in LA, and there's an apothecary, giving you different herbs. Because think about it. So that flavor, one, it has that licorice kind of flavor. So not star anise, but a little bit more medicinal,
yes,
right?
yeah.
Because star anise is often also in these pork braised stews, etc. So this is often applied to pork. I think some say it takes away that porky, right? And yeah, I know you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
pork,
that I would,
Robert, sure.
that I would
Yeah,
agree.
I don't get it.
Italian
So,
Tien Viet,
um,
vegetarian restaurant. Yeah.
yes, yes.
So
So it's
kosher
often
food
used in those.
myself.
Yeah, no, I get it. So originally though, it's one of those ingredients that's kind of a tonic. So I've seen it in Vietnam, frankly, more so in tea. I remember having it with like a lime, a squeeze of that, and in a tea because it's good for your, how most ingredients are yin or yang. The unique thing about this licorice, it's kind of neutral. It's in the middle. So they often prescribe it within these tonics, whether it be drinks or foods that have this restorative balancing effect. And they kind of, they harmonize and balance the not just the flavor, but really what it does for your body. So I think we see it in beverages, we see it in braised dishes, and in the US, I mean, let's look at prepared foods that are out there. Tonics, botanicals have
Yeah.
become, right, very, very popular. You don't see it moving into the sauces that much. And I think it's a huge gap of coming up with a line of Asian sauces that have Chinese tonics or some type of, profile added to it and promoted as such. It seems natural. There's got to
Yeah.
be some out there.
What I'm hoping some of our audience takeaways, we're talking about pork bone tea, even though it's kind of plateaued, that whole bone broth, explosion of popularity,
Yeah.
why haven't we seen this? And so I'm hoping some members of our audience might say,
Huh.
what? This is a really good idea to mainstream.
Well, I like that. And to me, because I mean, bone broth, I've always, you mean stock or broth? I mean, it's just
That,
broth. However, I think what's interesting about bone broth being usually utilized to drink as it is, right, as savor it, is adding these tonic, these different ingredients that add an aromatic compound that add a taste because often bitter, right? Or what's really interesting, David, it's crazy, David, is this licorice. It's sweet when you bite it. Like, have you ever picked up a piece of acacia, the cinnamon, the thick skin cinnamon, and bitten?
yeah.
It's sweet as can be. It's amazing how sweet it is. And the same thing with this root. It has a sweetening effect without adding sugar.
Yeah, but like you said, it does balance. It's a ni- it, what from I remember from my chef days, we used to call it a bridge flavor. That
Oh,
if you
okay.
needed to
I like
bridge
that.
a sweet and a savory, you would bring in something like this flavor. And
Huh.
I
A
know
bridge.
yep,
I like it.
my chef days predate yours by about 15 years, and I got out probably when you were still in short pants, but that's what we called it, a bridge flavor. And
Mm.
that is what this, and that's what I like, like I said, the one restaurant that seems to use it where I've tasted it, and you mentioned star anise, and it is very similar in flavor concept, but different.
Oh
And
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, anise, fennel, I mean,
yeah,
same, but as they say in Thailand, same, but different.
exactly. So, are there any other similar, we call them obscure or underused ingredients that you would recommend product developers explore? And, not just from, Vietnam or Malaysia, but just Asia in general, the 40 to 50 countries that you mentioned.
Well, I mean, as you know, I mean, although I've traveled and I've learned a little bit of not northeastern Asia, right? Korea, Japan, China. My passion, my second home is in Southeast Asia, and I think one ingredient, although you'll see it up in China, not as common, is the screw pine or pandanus leaf. It's
Mhm.
something that it seemed to just be on the edge, right? You hear about it, it kind of disappears. You hear about it, it disappears. But where I think something similar, and it's bright green. There's actually two varieties. The one that we all use, or most people use, it's a long leaf, sometimes called screw pine, the pandanus leaf. And that pandan leaf has the same aromatic compound that jasmine rice has in it, that popcorn has in it, and it's that warm,
Yeah,
that's why
warm
right?
aromatic, um,
Exactly.
almost like
And what's unique? Go
I was
ahead.
just not the same, but almost like rosemary in the way it has
Huh? A warming
floral,
almost,
a green. Uh,
right?
I got
Yeah.
an editor give me grief one time because I described a flavor as green, but I said, relax, food
Oh,
people know what we mean,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what's unique about this green, it doesn't just have a green grassy taste, which it does have a little bit of taste, right, of the five or seven tastes, but it's really about the aroma,
Mhm.
that top note, and it's really about the color because it's deep. Anything you see in Southeast Asia that's green, that's sweet, I guarantee is going to be the pandan that's making it that green. 99% of the time, it usually have coconut and palm sugar with or what have you. So the pandanus gives you that bright green color, delicious aromatic, thing. Kind of like look at ube, right? Ube, because of its brilliant color, it became this Instagrammable blah blah blah. But I think ube is a little easier to use in some ways because it's something physical. You can buy. It's been commercialized into a powder. It's got that brilliant color. Where pandan is just a leaf or two leaves. In Malaysia, I learned actually just like five plus years ago. I didn't know this that there's a second one. It's called pandan cendol, which is used for the deep green color, not the aroma. So sometimes they'll combine these two. But
Uh,
there are different extracts. There are different flavorings that have pandan, of course. And I would just encourage trying to find the right one because it's kind of like kaffir lime. If you don't have the right, or the magroot lime, if you don't have the right one, it tastes like fruity pebbles. It's like the wrong note, or like a bad banana tastes like that those peanuts we ate when we were kids for some odd reason, right? So which flavor, which extract, which concentration is really important. Not just, oh, it's pandan. Well, it's three different food colors and five different artificial flavors. Yeah,
but a great opportunity for product makers by having
I
that
think
variety.
so. Yeah, and you know what? I mean, you think about something that came into fashion, so to speak, are the pea flowers, right?
Yeah.
You see now, similar, also from Asia, they grow wild in my front yard. Again, that one though, really no taste, all color. And I think what's interesting, and I haven't seen this done with pandan, now that you got me thinking, with the the pea flower, because of adding base salt, right, darkens it to this deep blue type of thing, or adding acid, turns it bright. You can change colors, and we've seen that used in cocktails and things. And I could see that, the drink, the little Japanese drink where you hit the marble into it or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
right?
I
I'm
know what it's
forgetting how to
called, but
say it.
yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a cool one with you have the pea flower color and then you hit it, it drops in an acid that changes its
Mm,
color.
that's nice. I remember
Or
my
stir
dad
in.
those drinks, you know.
Mm,
And then you mentioned ube, which has really taken off lately. And I remember having ube ice cream for the first time in the Philippines. And,
mm,
it was just mind blowing when they told me, no, there's no, this is what it is. And it was just, the sweet potato
yeah,
and the ice cream, and that was it. And because it's very few things that you think of that are, the botanicals that have color. One of the hardest things in the big shift from artificial to natural colors was getting colors that are stable and stay vibrant. And so here you have ube and the pandan, and
right.
they not only stay vibrant, but can even, find that color enhanced in
Yeah. Huh. It's an interesting point because you think about the stabilization is a really, I mean, let's just be practical. Making good food is easy.
yeah.
Frankly, I don't think it's that complicated. Making good food that fits the price parameters that can be distributed, all these different things that product developers do, it's a different thing than just cooking, right? So I'm hoping that what we've seen in beverages, et cetera, because hey, that the ube, I was just in Hawaii a few weeks back for an anniversary trip, and they ube butter mochi. You know mochi, right? The
Yeah.
mochi with the rice flour. But in Hawaii, they're famous for their butter mochi. So it's basically butter, rice flour. And it was the last thing I had to go to the store and buy just to bring back to the mainland was this butter ube mochi. So bright purple. And that chewy texture is not for a lot of Americans, right? But I gave it to several people. And because the butter, first the color, like, wow, I'm like completely natural. So you open their mind to trying it. Then they taste it like, wow, that's buttery and yummy. So it was good entry point for someone to try a new ingredient in something that's maybe sweet, and then it can transfer to savory and even to coffee culture, right? The pea flowers have made it into coffees and teas, pretty mainstream, as has ube, of course.
Wow. So again, these are things that have ingredients that have just such incredible promise, variety, and for sure, they need to be taken advantage of, especially these days. It's just it, it's impressive. Yeah, that's what I can say. I hope that our audience is, curious enough about this to say, you know what, let's make something with these because we should see more of it. And again, it doesn't have to be in an Asian dish either. There's so much you can do. Again, the ube ice cream was,
Right. And David, I think it's a perfect if you go back to the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about fish sauce. It wasn't Asian. They just take it and made it their own and did their own thing. So
exactly.
I think sometimes we are so territorial of ingredients, which is a disservice to the global cuisine. We
Oh,
talk
sure.
about, right? Because remember, you know this, 600 years ago, no chilies in Asia,
I was just going to mention that. No chili peppers.
right?
And then you look, yeah,
Like
yeah.
corn is a big deal there. There was no
Mhm.
corn. We had no citrus in the Americas, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Nothing. It all came from Asia. So I think what's interesting as product developers, menu developers, et cetera, is we often are working on prepared foods and we want to fetishize in some way. Oh, this is
Mhm.
Thai. This is how they do it. Oh, I was there. I traveled through the streets. Like, well, yeah, but if you were there 10, 20, 30, 50, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, it was a different food. So it's okay to innovate with flavors, forms. It just, I try to be respectful and not just use something and call it Thai because you added kaffir lime. Like,
Mhm.
really? Yeah.
Man, thank you so much, Robert. It is always, always just a great pleasure talking to you and having you contribute, to our knowledge base
Thank
with
you.
yours. Many thanks to our audience members for joining us. Before we go, though, I want to add that Chef Robert recently launched a culinary life skills program for hearing disabled children in Vietnam. And it's a
Yes.
program that helps kids 10 to 14 to learn cooking, kitchen safety, and gardening, and it empowers them to care for themselves and their families. So you can find out more about both Asian style formulations and the culinary life skills program in Robert's feature article of our August e-magazine issue of Prepared Foods. So be sure to check out the main menu at preparedfoods.com too, because there you're going to find a comprehensive library of articles, podcasts, videos, white papers, infographics, all the other resources of value for today's food developers and manufacturers, and like I said, even lots more of Robert's contributions. I'm David Fetter, Executive Editor Technical for Prepared Foods Media, and until next time, bye.
Thank you, folks.